In this movie, we're going to be talking about toolbar positioning in jQuery Mobile. There are three options you have when choosing how to position your toolbars. The first is static positioning. And in fact, this example here, with no extra markup, already is in static positioning mode. Basically what that means is that this div with the data role of header and this div with the data role of footer will behave exactly the same way you would expect them to, as simple div elements on the page. You'll notice when you scroll that the header and the footer appear to be pasted onto the page, just like normal. So let's go ahead and go over the other two options we have. jQuery provides a fixed positioning mode. So let's go ahead and type in the code that we need to make that happen. All we need to do is to add data position equals fixed. So let's go ahead and add the markup that we need to change the positioning mode of the header. All you have to do is add data position equals fixed. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it down here on the footer as well. So now I've changed the positioning mode of both of these, and when I refresh, you can see that the header and the footer are both here and present. And when I scroll, the rest of the page scrolls underneath the header and the footer. So that's pretty cool. But when you tell jQuery Mobile to use fixed positioning mode, it actually leaves some space in the document for the header and the footer. In fact, if I'm scrolled down here and I click, it'll actually hide both the header and the footer. If I click again, it'll bring them back. But when it hides them, what it actually does is it moves them up to their normal place here. And so now they're behaving as if they're in static positioning mode. That means that if I'm up here and I click, the header isn't going to go anywhere because it's already in the proper place. If I'm scrolled just a little bit down, you'll notice it pops up to where it would be if it were in static positioning mode. So that's fixed. So let's go ahead and turn it into full screen mode. In order to do that, you have to type, in addition to data position equals fixed, you type data full screen equals true. I'm going to go ahead and put that down here on our footer as well, and we'll go over here and refresh. Now jQuery Mobile actually has a small bug. For this training, we're using version 1.1.0 release candidate. Now we're using the release candidate because as of the recording of this training, this is the most recent version that's out. Using a release candidate means that we get to take advantage of all of the extra little features that they've put in. However, at the same time, it means that we may encounter a couple bugs before they release version 1.1.0 stable. In our case, we can see one of those bugs right here. This is full screen positioning mode. It looks exactly like fixed positioning mode, but you may notice that there's no room for this header in the document. In fact, the heading that says hi there is actually being overlapped by the header. You never get that with just data position equals fixed because, of course, jQuery Mobile keeps a little bit of space for the header and the footer. Now, if I click, you'll see that they go away, but then they pop back in this bizarre way. Same thing for the footer. So let's go ahead and take a look at the documentation for jQuery 1.0.1. You can get there by typing jQueryMobile.com/demos/1.0.1. 1.0.1 is the version that came out most recently before 1.1.0. That's the one that we're using in this training. I'm going to go ahead and click on Toolbars, and then I'll click on Full Screen Positioning. And we can see what it actually looks like when it works properly. So when you click, the toolbars go away entirely, leaving the user to have a completely full screen experience. This is great for web applications that typically would take up the entire screen of the device. An example would be a photo gallery. Typically, you don't want that precious screen real estate taken up by a header that the user might just want to click to remove. If you click one more time, the footer and the header come back. So just to recap, that's the difference between full screen positioning and fixed positioning. Fixed positioning keeps a little bit of room for the header and for the footer. As a brief side note, you'll notice that jQuery Mobile actually removes the header and the footer from the view. That's actually because iOS freezes DOM manipulation during scrolling. They do that to make things a little bit faster, but at the same time, this means that no JavaScript can run and reflow the page during the scrolling. Initially, jQuery Mobile solved that problem by just removing the elements and then fading them back in after the scroll. However, again, one of the advantages of using the release candidate is that we get the latest and greatest. It turns out they found a way to move past that issue, but we do get that error when we try and use data full screen equals true. Now, if you want to get around that error, either use the latest stable version of jQuery Mobile, whether that's 1.01 or maybe a new one has come out since the training was released, or don't use data full screen equals true, just use fixed. So that's what positioning looks like in jQuery Mobile.